responsibility, obligation. It was, since I was a little kid, it was always like, Pete's going to take care of us. So you hear that when you're, 10 years old, single parent family, going to rehab on the weekends, your dad's into drugs and alcohol, he's absent. And I think I really took that to heart, and I truly can change the cycle, not just for my family, my direct kids, wife, but for everybody, for her family, for my siblings, for everybody.
Pete, what's up, man? So good to see you. It's been years since we've connected even to this level. We text and that sort of thing, but to be able to connect face to face has been a while.
Yeah, I know it's been a bit. Thanks for having me on again. I've been missing getting on your podcast and talking smack.
I've been missing training with you guys. I saw some pretty sexy images by Mr. Joe over there on Origin.
Yeah.
He pulled that stuff off well. Was that your doing, or was that his own idea?
No. I have a new assistant creative director, Gabe, and he came up with this idea. But Joe, I just got off the phone with him, and he's like, Channel 5 wants to come and interview me tomorrow. I was like, all right,
yeah.
You just remember you're representing the brand. So you never know what's going to come out of his mouth.
Man, Gabe and Joe knocked it out of the park. I've always said that if anybody could do a reality show, I don't know if you've explored this option, but he ought to do one.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for when that comes out.
We did have a development deal in 2015 with History Channel. And they were they spent a bunch of money. They sent a whole production company up here, and they did a full blown development thing for a TV show to kind of follow up Duck Dynasty. And Joe was like the center of it. And then they hired this woman from Lifetime. The CEO had left, and this new woman came into A&E, and she shut the project down. She didn't want real men doing real things, I guess. She wants gator hunters, but we were that close. I'm glad it didn't happen. In hindsight, I'm glad that didn't happen. So.
Yeah, well, I think Joe is gonna rival. What's her name? Sydney Sweeney or whatever her name is with American Eagle or whatever that is. I think Joe has got her beat.
Some of the photos we didn't show were a little bit more, she's got her boobs hanging out and he had his gut hanging out. You know what I mean? He's got his
That's
belly,
funny.
but we didn't show some of that. They shot some funny photos, but it was good overall. That just playing off of the whole Blue Jeans campaign, the American Eagle.
Yeah,
it was.
I mean,
well timed.
Look, I appreciate. I've known you for a long time. 7-8 years now.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the opportunity that you take to explore the fringes, but also do something serious. And there's a little bit of paradox there. I mean, you guys are bringing back American manufacturing, but you're doing it in a fun, playful way, which I think is something that deeply resonates with people, as opposed to just nobody knows about manufacturing. I remember one of our first conversations, and I didn't know anything about it, and I only know a little bit about it now because you've shared it with me over the past 7-8 years now at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we don't live on the fringe often, but the brand it's a very serious brand. I mean, we take our job seriously, our business serious, the product serious, but doesn't mean we're stone cold. I mean, there's still some humor, and we want that to shine through because it's reality. We're not trying to show the world we're something we're not. And if we make mistakes or tuition payments, or we want to try something, we test and learn. And I think people are scared of that. They're scared of showing their real self. And we've got a lot of characters that very well within the company, and bringing those to light and showing, hey, there's just real people behind this thing. Nobody's acting, nobody's trying to show the world something they're not. And I think people appreciate that, and I think they appreciate it in both. They appreciate it, but they also crave that in this day and age where everything's just so plastic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's a real connection between you and guys like Dennis and Joe and Ty
Yeah.
and Jackson, who I think is over on the Jocko Fuel side
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You know, you see
Keegan's over
these
there
guys
too
and you
because
think,
he
oh,
just
Keegan's
started.
over on Jocko.
Yeah.
Is he on the East Coast or West Coast,
He's
though?
on the East Coast, but he started his first job ever yesterday for Jocko Fuel. Yeah.
It's so wild that he's done with college now.
Yeah, he graduated. Yeah, May.
I can't believe that. I remember when he was going
I know.
to college. Dude, that's wild.
Fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and my oldest son, who you know, Brecken,
Yeah.
has been big into lacrosse over the past 3 years now. And you and Keegan actually were instrumental into that growth. And we actually went up. There's the Premier Lacrosse League,
Yep.
and Utah has a team, the Archers. So last week we went up and watched the Archers play. Man, it is a great sport.
Unbelievable. After jiu-jitsu, second best sport on the planet, in my opinion.
Why after jiu-jitsu?
Oh man, because jiu-jitsu is so applicable to all facets of life. You know, like and it's a metaphor for sports. One sec, I got the cat meowing, and I don't know why. You can't hear
Hear the
that, can
cat.
you? Yeah,
No, I
damn
can
cat.
hear it. I can definitely
Can
hear
you
that
hear it?
cat. It's okay though. It's good.
All right.
This is a real conversation, man.
Yes, yeah. So it's just got so many great lessons, like in sports, and of course I played sports my whole life, and then all through college, and then obviously into jiu-jitsu after that. And I always say I would give up every sport, every championship trophy I've ever received to have started jiu-jitsu when I was a young kid. Because it just, I've taken so much from it. Now, next year is my 20th year in jiu-jitsu. Timing, leverage, balance, when to tap out, when to escape, when to swallow your pride, and say I've had enough. And it's like, I call it chess under stress. And most other sports aren't solo pursuits. In jiu-jitsu, although you're doing it with a team, it's like a hybrid pursuit. So you're learning with other people, but it's a solo pursuit in your mind. So your physical and mental capacity you're putting into it. Whereas in team sports, you rely on the team to win, to compete, to be competitive. And so it's a lot also like business. Business starts out a lot of times, very entrepreneurial, and that's also a solo pursuit until you sculpt a team around these ideas or your vision. And sometimes it still feels like a solo pursuit, regardless if you have a team, because it ends up all being on you. In the end, it's all on you. And so jiu-jitsu is the same way. Hey, man, it's all on you in the end. And that's why I think it's the best. It's my long-winded answer. Why it's the best sport I've ever played.
I mean, I would agree. I think wrestling would probably rank right up there if you're in high school. I remember I wrestled as a sophomore and a junior in high school. And you're out there. Wrestling's a little different just because you're almost naked, essentially, and there's no hiding. Unless you're no-gi, right? There's no hiding behind a gi or anything else. And you're out there showing everything you got, physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's you and one other person at the end of the day. And I like that. I actually like that.
Yeah. I wrestled right up until I was too tall to wrestle, and I started playing basketball right until eighth grade maybe. But I was a wrestler.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, but you could have dominated, man.
I did up until eighth grade.
Why didn't you? You were still tall. You could have just. Well, no, I'm saying in basketball, you could have dominated everybody under the board.
No, I wrestled right up until I started playing basketball. So I'm saying
got it.
Yeah. Then I figured out in seventh grade I could dunk a basketball, and I was like, all right, I got a new sport now. Or eighth grade, something.
Yeah, that's like Jed and his boys. They're like 6'10" at 13. I'm like, dude, he's got to bring a birth. He told me he's got to bring a birth certificate every time he goes to a a basketball game because the other side's always questioning his boys' age.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Maine puts out some athletes. I mean, come on now. Cooper Flagg, he's from an hour away. Like he's
No doubt, man.
dominant force in men's basketball right now.
No, that's true. That's true. Number one recruit, I think, or draft pick. I don't really follow basketball too closely, but I think
Number
that's
one
what
pick.
my boys told me.
Number one recruit and number one pick. Number one recruit in college and number one pick in the draft. So
Yeah. So you talk about I like that chess under stress is jiu-jitsu, but you also talk about it in the concept of business is chess under stress. You made some big changes in your business, and I know a lot of guys listening to this podcast are very interested in not only entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, I've heard it called, but you're building something different than that. Talk to me about how a guy can start something. I mean, because you could have very easily started a business and just maintain the course of jiu-jitsu, because that's what you did when you started Origin.
Yeah.
But you made a pivot and a switch, and I'm really curious as to why you made that switch instead of doubling down into the jiu-jitsu world.
yeah, market dynamics. We can talk about that a little bit. And the purpose of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. Is that introspective, or are you trying to affect more than yourself and your own wallet and your own family? So there's a deeper meaning and purpose, and we can touch on the power of purpose and all that stuff, because that all drives my behavior ultimately. You're either a taker of things or a maker of things, and I try to be a maker of things, and I think the byproduct of doing the right thing for the right reasons is success. That's what I think the byproduct is, and the byproduct can be earning a great living and doing the things you never imagined you could do in life. So starting for me, it was first, to try and escape future recession. I didn't want to be affected by a future economic downturn, because I had lost my first business when I was in my 20s, unable to pivot off of the recession, and I just felt like I was part of the froth of what was happening, and I didn't feel like an individual, and that I had power. And over my life, I felt like whatever was happening in New York City and Wall Street, how did it get to the freaking woods of Maine? How did this thing affect me that I don't even buy into, I don't even pay attention to? Has it seeped in, and I just understood that the world is much bigger than I am, and the way the world works, I was totally naive to. And so I just wanted to transcend being affected by anything in the future. And I always have been outside of the box. Let's just be honest. Like an ADHD kid, INFJ, Myers-Briggs personality, teachers didn't like me. I didn't fit in the box. The doctors told my mom to medicate me to get me on drugs. She didn't. She put me in sports. That's why I love sports. And
Good move on her part.
Yeah, and good move on her part. And so, I've never liked the box. And so I'm like, let me try to do something outside of the box. And so jiu-jitsu was my passion. Jiu-jitsu was keeping me sane. Jiu-jitsu was my therapy. And so making and reinventing the jiu-jitsu gi was the initial idea. But from day one, I knew the market was small. Like the market dynamics of jiu-jitsu is like whoever is going to enter jiu-jitsu and step on the mat for the first time and put that white belt on, which is the hardest belt to get, is the white belt, right? To step on for the first time and put that white belt on, that is actually harder than getting your black belt, because some people will wait forever and never do it. And some people, like most people, like if you say there's 2 million jiu-jitsu competitors worldwide, how many people are in the world? There's 2 million people that actually are willing to step on the mat. That's hard.
I don't know. I disagree with that a little bit, though.
Hit me with it.
Like, I will, because I think 20 years ago you might have been accurate. I think today you're not, because of how popular jiu-jitsu and martial arts have become over the past 2 decades. I don't think going to your first class is the hardest. I think sticking around for 12 months is.
Yeah, you could be right. It could be sticking around. How many of your friends have talked about jiu-jitsu or watch UFC? How many of them?
All of them. Literally all of them.
How many of them train jiu-jitsu regularly?
Yeah, 10% or less.
10% or less. They all love it. They all probably have this idea they would like to try it, but most of the time our ego gets in the way from even stepping on the mat. Yeah, of course, there's a drop-off rate. There's a drop-off rate between stepping on the mat and ending up with a black belt 6, 8, 10 years later, for sure. But the reason it's hardest to step on the mat is because tens of millions of people have thought about it, and only a few actually are willing to take that step. Now, staying with it, that's a whole nother conversation. That's why I say the hardest belt to get is a white belt. Once you get a white belt, yeah, your next hardest belt is a black belt. That's second, because you got to be willing to take the first step. But I never thought like this was just gonna be a jiu-jitsu company like Origin. And for me, casting that long-term strategic vision early on was, I want to do way more than make gis, but let's become really great at making gis. Like we made our first pair of boots in 2015. That was like a couple years after we built the factory. Didn't share it with anybody.
Actually, I don't have them anymore. You have them somewhere. I don't know where you put them, but you have them somewhere.
Yeah.
The ones I made.
Yeah.
In maybe 2017 or whatever it was.
Probably in the store. Yeah. So the market dynamics of jiu-jitsu is very small. The market's very big, and I'm not really built to do like just flash in the pan type of stuff. So I always had this long-term strategic vision for building a brand and building something that would like transcend just jiu-jitsu. But if we could use jiu-jitsu as the foundation, as the roots of the brand, it would be the coolest, toughest, most dynamic, most respected brand that's ever existed. Because when you trace brand building back to the source, like take Oakley, Jim Gennard started with a motorcycle grip, right, out of his trunk of his car. If you take Nike, they started with.
That's the catalyst for Oakley. I didn't know that. That's the catalyst for Oakley.
Yeah, and then they put silicone on the back of goggles for dirt bikes, like to hold them on the helmet, and that started to develop. I mean, same thing with Under Armour was a tight-fitting football shirt. Nike was a running shoe. Lulu was a yoga pants. Like you could go on Adidas, Adi Dazzler. They were just making shoes, and they broke off into Puma and Adidas. And so every brand has a beginning. And all the brands I looked at, I was like, well, jiu-jitsu is way cooler. It's like way cooler as a starting point. And I love it. And so if we can prove out we can make stuff again in America, and we make the toughest jiu-jitsu gis, well, we can make anything out of fabric, and we can make it the toughest. And so that's kind of where it started. But I just I have a desire to win and like go. I'm trying to balance that out in my life right now. It's very hard.
I think, Pete, one of the things that I really appreciate about you is because, well, I'll back up a little bit. One of the common comments I get is, man, I just wish you had regular guys, quote unquote, regular guys. And what people don't know about having quote unquote regular guys on the podcast is everybody from you to Jocko to Ben Shapiro and Dave Ramsey and Tim Tebow and all these other guys I've had on the podcast. Everybody's a regular guy. I wish there was a way for men to connect the idea between meteoric rise, like somebody like Jocko, for example, to just a regular dude who at 17, 18 years old decided he wanted to join the Navy.
Yeah.
And I don't think people connect with that, but I think you've done a tremendous job in being able to say, hey, we're just regular guys in the backwoods of Maine with some goals, some dreams, some desires. And sometimes I just wish they could see, because I've lived a little bit with you and the community over the past 3-4 years. I wish more people could see that you are all just regular guys, but you're doing extraordinary things.
And that's the power of purpose. And I think the two things that are missing between, a regular person or a regular person that builds something that seems irregular is twofold. It's stepping into the unknown, which is uncomfortable, and it's having a power of purpose onto why you're stepping into the unknown. And so those two drivers a lot of times are missing or somehow, somewhere, at some time in somebody's life, there was doubt cast that they can do more than they're doing, or take a risk on themselves more than they have. And I think that's the biggest lie that somehow has been told in this society, because we're brought up in these educational systems very much as, agrarian society 250 years ago. We didn't make shit until the Industrial Revolution. We needed a strong manufacturing middle class, so our education system was designed off of teaching these basic skills of reading, writing, math, so that then, our grandparents could ultimately go into the factories and work, and then the boomers came along, our parents, and kind of same thing, right? So we're trained to plug into the machine. Americans are trained to plug into the machine. Now we're trained with a free mind, right, to think outside the box, because that's where innovation comes from. And so the roots of this American mindset, this free-minded, rebellious mindset, it's a really interesting balance of, I'm free, I don't fit in the box, I can say what I want, I got free speech, I can do what I want, I can do anything. Yet I do need to plug into this machine, because the American dollar is only valuable because the American worker. And that's it. Without the American worker, there is no value in our fiat currency. So we're trained in our educational system, in public school system, to think a certain way about life. You go to school till you're 20, you work till you're 60, you pay your dues, you get your 401k, and then you retire at 60. And for me, thank God, I just never bought into that, because I didn't plug in. I physically didn't plug in. And so when I didn't plug in, like normal people would plug in and be very happy and content with that, I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I'm going to have to design my own world. And so the only option for me was to step into the unknown. And now, having gone through that, seen the wizard behind the curtain, now I can only say, after 25 years, because I've everything I've ever eaten, I've killed since I've been 18 years old, right? I haven't had a job since I dropped out of college. I've been working for myself. And so I can say that now, with all the technology and all the knowledge and all the information, and it's all free, someone can now, a regular guy, regardless of who you are, how you were brought up, where you live, how much money you have, a regular guy can pull himself out of whatever situation he's in on a path of upward trajectory, if he has a power of purpose and is willing to take a risk on himself. That's it. Because we are regular guys, that 100%. Just dudes in the woods.
Neighbors, friends, family. I that's interesting you said that, because I was thinking about it, because you do have people that work with you who are plugged into the system, so to speak. But then you also have a group of individuals who plugged into the system but unplugged from the system, who are still connected with you. And I wrote this down as you were saying this. These individuals used the system, did not allow the system to use them.
Yeah.
Would you agree or disagree?
The exchange for me, I don't like to trade time for money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to think of it like that. Although, in a lot of cases, that is the case. Um, I think I like to identify people who actually are seeking more and give them upward trajectory and help them with whatever they want to do to realize their vision and mission in life. A good example of this is Ty Nichols, who he was employee number 8. He was leaving notes on my door when he was 18 years old, wanting to get a
I
meeting.
know this about him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like,
I mean,
cool.
I've trained with this guy, and I could tell just in training alone
Yeah.
that this is a guy who's going to kick ass in life.
Yeah. And he's still working for the company. He works for Jocko Fuel now. But he came to me a couple months ago and he's like, I have this passion to now take a risk on myself. And I was like, tell me more. And he just had a baby and he's like 30 now, whatever. He's been with us for 10 years. I said, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to buy this old golf course. And I was like, all right, what's stopping you?
Oh, that's right.
And he's like, well, I'm working for Jocko Fuel full time. But I said, Ty, like, you've been with me forever. You know how I think. You know what I'm going to say to you is like, take a risk on yourself, man. Like, everything will get worked out. Like, you got a support system. Bro, the kid goes and buys this old abandoned golf course. He starts an Instagram page and a TikTok page. His social media following is bigger than Origin and Jocko Fuel combined already. It's insane. His engagement is insane. It's huge. He's got
Ty on the podcast.
You got
Pete, let's end it. Let me have Ty on the second half of this podcast right here.
Get Ty. I could pull him up. I could tell him to drive over. So he's got like 400, close to 400,000 Instagram followers already in 6 weeks. I don't know, 300,000 or 400,000 TikTok followers. His YouTube channel is blowing up, and he's taken everything he's learned. And I'm coming back to what you said. I don't think the company uses people, and I don't think that the people use the company. I think there's a relationship, and depending on the individual, that relationship can be defined whatever their power of purpose is. Ty's power of purpose has always been to go out on his own. It's always been to take a risk on himself. He told me this day one. I want to eventually do something and build something. But he took a decade, and everything great in life takes 10 years. He took a decade to learn, and now he's applying all of his learnings to this new venture. It's Fairway Fields on Instagram, Fairway Fields on TikTok, Fairway Fields. And he's bringing this old abandoned golf course back to life. He's just taking the Origin model, like bring it back to life, revitalize, and applying it to golf. And he's having a lot of success. And so I know I answered your question indirectly, but it depends on the individual. And yes, most people are designed, and some people are pulling themselves out of poverty and they just want opportunity, especially in this part of Maine. And so we provide that opportunity. But I tell people, like, my first 4 employees are still my first 4 employees. Some of them have grown into managers of the company. Some of them have gone into a position they're like, I just love this, being in this role, because they spent 25 years working for shitty fucking companies and in shitty positions, making $7 an hour. And all of a sudden they're making real money and they have stability and their home life is better and everything. So it really depends on the person.
So for a young man who's listening to this podcast, or even a not so young man who's thinking to himself, I don't want to work for the man anymore. Why did you hire Ty when he was 20 years old, beating down your door, didn't have any sort of reputation or resume to judge him by? Why did you hire him? By the way, I'm going to reach out to Ty and we're going to do a podcast together.
You should.
On the back of this one, because I've always really respected and appreciated what he brings to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been in conversations, like real conversations, that he's got so much locked in his head, private conversations too, because he's carrying a camera around. You're around me or Jocko or whoever else in the company. He's been in the room.
Right. Yeah.
He was in a room with us when we were negotiating potentially the biggest deal. And we had to ask him, like, to go into the bedroom and, like, close a door, at one point in Montana.
While the adults were talking, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
So
gonna ask him about that.
yeah, you can. But the kid was. He said, "I'm willing to do anything," and I said, "Okay, got it." Like a kid that is willing to do, because a lot of these kids, they think that they're entitled to working a certain amount, getting a certain amount of breaks, doing a certain thing. It's just this. It was really, and I'm not sure it's like that anymore. But the onset of technology and the internet, and then the influencer thing, there was just a lot of propaganda that anybody can like be an influencer and just bust. It's not the case. And so Ty was like, I'm willing to do anything. I want to learn about business. And he's like, so I found the most successful person I know in Farmington, Maine, right? Which is
Not a big pool to draw from.
That's my point, right? And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And he's like, I'll do whatever. I said, cool. I need some sewing machines moved. It's a 2-hour trip down. You're gonna have to make that trip every day for the next 4 weeks with my father-in-law, Joe Parody, and I need you to move this whole sewing factory to Farmington. And he's like, okay. And he
Joe Sweeney Parody, we call him.
Yeah,
these
Joe
days.
Sweeney. Yeah, and so I will give anyone a chance that's willing to do anything as long as they have no expectations. It's when someone has expectations that it becomes a problem, because then their ambition becomes reckless ambition because it becomes about them and not the mission of the man, which happens to be me, right? So
Right,
I
sure.
need them bought into my mission and my long-term strategic vision. And people seemingly organize themselves into a hierarchical society. Like in society, they're going to organize themselves. So not everybody's going to be take a risk. And some people just want stability. And some people just want to climb out of poverty. And some people just want to support their family. And some people just want a homestead and just have enough, And some people just want a job because they're trying to change the cycle in their family. So to each their own, and we provide opportunity on all those levels. And of course, there's been some deep selects in the company over the years. Like, I go deep and I select this person out because this one is a little bit different. He's a little bit different. She's a little bit different. A little more. I don't want to say more special, but if they want, they have a little bit quicker opportunity, and we've had a few folks like that also.
Are you familiar with James Altucher? Do you know
James
of him?
Altucher. Yeah,
He wrote a book. Yeah, he had a real. I don't really follow him much anymore, but he wrote a book called Skip the Line, and somebody like Ty skipped the line. He jumped in. You're talking about people who are quote unquote a little bit different. They skipped the line, meaning they didn't go through the traditional routes and they didn't stand in line and wait for their turn. They said,
Right.
no, I'm just going to jump in line ahead of everybody else and get to it.
Yeah.
When you say a little bit different, what characteristics come to mind? Are there some themes? Are there some trends that you look for when you're like, this person's a little different?
Yeah. High emotional intelligence, or at least a willingness to listen more than talk. But a high emotional intelligence is pretty important. Like, you can see somebody who's really engaged in pulling information in, right? Resourcefulness. I describe as someone who they're not giving you answers like, oh, nobody's ever showed me that. I'm not sure how to do that. Oh, I wasn't part of the conversation. Oh, I don't have that information. And someone who is a deep select will naturally be like, oh, let me find that for you. Oh, I can figure that out. Give me a day and I'll get it to you.
Wait, you said deep select. Is that what you said?
Yeah, deep select.
What does that mean?
It's just somebody in the organization that, let's say, is in a entry level and or junior position that you think can help lead the company someday, or be a big instrument in the company. I think about my role as a founder CEO. The way I explain it these days is, I either explain it from the place of being an artist physical artist or a musician. I'm a conductor. Like I don't get to pick up the paintbrushes, or I don't get to play the instruments, but I know how the instruments should be played, and I can tell when they're out of tune, and I can bring in the beat. I need the strings. I need the, my job is to like bring it all in so that there's harmony, and it's beautiful music, and there's got to be tension on the strings for the music to play. And so that's kind of my role, and part of that is seeing potential talent, right? Like my whole job is talking to bankers and freaking lawyers and HR and recruiting and getting talented people. And so I'm also looking within the organization, not just outside the organization. And so those deep selects, they could be entry level, junior, but it's somebody I see something special in. I have a kid right now, Will Bates, he's a genius kid, and the other resourcefulness is like they're on all the time. They're providing you with something you didn't even ask for because they're thinking about it. They're not thinking about going and living for the weekends. On the weekends, they're thinking about the, not necessarily the company, but how they can improve the things they're working on and bring value, and they do it
wherever they are, not just Origin, but wherever they are.
Wherever. And they do it without being asked. And so it's knowing, the last thing is knowing the next step. So it's emotional intelligence, it's resourcefulness, getting and finding the answer. And then I would say, I don't want to say the most important one, but equally important is knowing the next step. So not being asked. And if I have somebody like that in the organization, I pluck them out. And then I let them be part of like Will, this kid Will, for instance, Will Bates. I bring him in the first time on our first Black Friday meeting. He came into the war room with like all the drivers of the business, and I put him there. And I said, Will, I want you to feed me this data real time. I want you to give me the information so we can make pivots. And I had designers in the war room and our marketing, the creative team, and we're trying to drive revenue, right? It's a sales day. We do a huge part of our business in 24 hours. And you can see the light. You can see the light. Like, okay, they get me. And I'm not saying he's a company man. What I'm saying is a person like that is on fire, right? And you got to make sure that wind is blowing in the right direction, because if you try to blow against it, that you can catch fire, and that's a problem, right? So you want to harness that. You want to harness that fire, with these deep selects, it's real important.
That's interesting. I remember years ago, this is probably 15 years ago, I was doing some heating and air when I got back from Iraq. Mm-hmm. And the guy had me installing registers for airflow that night. Mm-hmm. And I came the next day, and I got there a little bit early, and I got out of my truck and I started hanging up these registers, which is what we were doing the night before. And the boss rolls in. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm hanging these registers." And he's like, "Why?" I'm like,
it's the next step.
I thought I was in trouble. I was like, this is what we were doing last night. I figured I would just go ahead and get started and just like finish what I didn't get done last night. He's like, "I've never had anybody do that before." And he was so harsh about it.
Really?
And I'm like, "Am I in trouble? Like, should I not have done this? Do I need to take these down?" He's like, "No, I'm just confused." I'm like, I don't know what you mean. He's like, "I've never had anybody do that before." And it's really interesting as you talk about these deep selects, because you're talking about the next step.
Yes.
It's sad in a way that it's so few and far between that somebody can just take initiative. I think that's what you're talking about.
It is.
It's just a little bit initiative that sets you apart from the pack.
Yep. And it's jiu-jitsu. Knowing the next step. Like that's what I love about jiu-jitsu, because it's just is so applicable. You can just peel it up and you can stick it on life, and you're good to go. I mean, it's not the only set of tools, but they're pretty big tools for me.
But I would also say, just in my limited experience, it's not only knowing the next step, it's a willingness to take the risk towards the next step. Because if I go and train with you and I'm like, "All right, I got him. I'm 2 steps ahead of him." Pete's like, "That's cute.
Yeah.
I'm a dozen steps ahead of you. So it's not just that you know what to do, it's that you're willing to take a risk
Yes.
and push yourself a little further beyond what you're currently capable of.
Yeah. Yeah, and jiu-jitsu teaches you to take those risks too, you know, and if you take a risk and you get caught, you get to tap and start over. And that's really nice too. So you're teaching yourself risk taking, and you're also teaching yourself when to push, when to cut the angle, when to tap out, when to restart. So yeah.
Some of us are more hard-headed than others, and we don't tap out when we should. But there's lessons to be learned in that. I'm still suffering from an injury from old Brian Little. Well, it wasn't. I was gonna pin it on him. It wasn't on Brian. It was on me. I was gonna pin it on him. That was my fault. You remember that day? That was crazy.
The one I remember the most is just because it was with Keegan. Keegan had thought he killed you one day, and he was very.
I do remember that.
He was like totally freaked out, you know. I think you passed.
My son has been there too. I don't tap quick to neck chokes.
Yeah.
I should definitely tap a whole lot sooner, but I don't. I need to learn that lesson, man.
We've all been choked to black. We've all been choked to black.
I want to go back to something you said. You were talking about success, and I'd be really curious as to how you define success, not only personally, but broadly.
Yeah, geez, that's a really good question because I don't really know what success looks like. I think part of the problem with the word is it's not stuck in a point in time, and it moves with you. That's like my biggest issue with the word. If 20-year-old Pete saw what 30-year-old Pete had, he would be like, holy shit, if I could look into the future, 20-year-old Pete, I'd be like, bro, you have it all. You have everything. You have your little timber frame home in the woods. You have 2 healthy kids, a beautiful wife. You have it. You have everything, right? And 40-year-old Pete looking back on 30-year-old Pete says, you have nothing. You have nothing. And that's the problem with the word is it shifts every year for me. And I think that's like the futile kind of fickle nature of the word, that you can't pin it down because human nature is to go. And that's how us Americans, you know, be rebellious, go out, you can be anything, you can do anything, you can be everybody, work hard, you know. It just like these words resonate in my head. And so now like I have everything I want, so I feel like I'm successful, you know, like it's great, it's nice. I took my little 1,200 square foot timber frame home last year, and we expanded it into a way too big of a house for 2 empty nesters. It's massive.
It's beautiful, by the way.
Yeah,
it looks amazing. I don't know anything else about it, but it looks amazing.
Thank you. I mean, in my wife and I, never in our lives, we've been together since we were 16 years old, did we ever talk about success? Just never a conversation. Never had the conversation about like, I want to be the most successful. I want to be like a millionaire. Like I never said those words. The only thing she ever said to me is I want a home near where I grew up and healthy babies, and I want to be barefoot and pregnant. Like that was her desire in life. And
you guys just had an anniversary, right?
Yeah, we just had one in May. 25 or 26? Jeez, I think it was.
I won't tell her that you don't know the answer to that question.
I do know. I have to go look, but yeah, we've been together for a long time. We got married when we were young.
You've been together for over a quarter of a century. Let's just say it like that.
Yeah, I mean, married and together since we were 16, and I'm 46. So
yeah,
so 30 years. 30 years we've been together. and I don't think she could tell you what success means either. I mean, we've had private jet, we've, flown around the country, like that whole thing, and now that's done, and and it helped us build the business and everything, but it was never a conversation. It was like one day we need to expand the company, and the next day we need to find a way to get there, and then we have this now tool to expand the enterprise, and okay, and that tool's used, and now it's gone, and on to the next thing. And so are we successful now? Because like I don't know. I mean, do you call successful having all your net worth tied up in equity in companies that you're responsible for building and can't fuck it up? You know what I mean? Or do you
It's a
consider
lot.
successful
It's
having
heavy.
tons of free cash flow in your account? Like I really don't know. What I do know is I think when we're able to retire her parents, when I'm able to do some other things for some of my family, because I feel solely responsible for breaking the cycle. Like I carry the full burden of that for my family, of breaking the cycle. I know my siblings are looking at me, they have kids. And so having that responsibility, I think when I truly can break the cycle for the entire family, then that's probably success, as I see it
You
today.
said you said carry the burden for your family. Is that the right word? Do you feel like it's a burden?
Huge. Yeah.
Explain
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
Because let me just give it a little context if I can. When I hear
yeah.
burden, I don't think of anything positive. I think
Yeah.
of responsibility, obligation, but I don't think of anything sacrifice. But I don't think of any sort of positive connotation with that.
Responsibility, obligation, it was Pete, since I was a little kid, it was always like, Pete's going to take care of us. It started out as a
They
joke.
everybody knew.
Yeah. Whole family.
Wow.
Yeah. So you hear that when you're, 10 years old, single parent family, going to rehab on the weekends, your, dad's into drugs and alcohol, he's absent and then gone. And so mom, 4 kids in the woods of Maine on welfare, like Pete's going to take care of us. So, like that I've carried that my whole life. But Pete's going to take care of us, but Pete doesn't fit into the box. And we have, kind of like we have the secret. We know that, and that's why, he. And so, I think I really took that to heart. And my wife and I have talked about this, and we kind of got cracked open last year in a pretty major way. And I feel solely responsible. I pay for my nieces and nephews' educations, college educations. I make sure I'm helping with the down payments on the homes and stuff like that. And so I serve as the patriarch. Since I was a little kid, I've served as the patriarch. So I'm putting that burden on a 12-year-old kid that has to fucking win, right? You have to win, and you're like now 30 years into that, and you can almost see it. And so now I define success as if I can just get there, because now that I know there's no limitations, I can do everything in my mind's eye I've ever imagined, that I've ever talked about, that I've ever thought about, and I truly can change the cycle, not just for my family, my direct kids, wife, but for everybody, for her family, for my siblings, for everybody. And there's
And
only
strangers with your employees as well.
Well, yeah, well, that too, for sure. I mean, that's a whole nother side of the coin. It's an opposite side of the coin. Um, you know, one is definitely like legacy and fixing something that's broken. Hugely broken, internally, familial. The other one is externally, community, and then the burden of fixing that broken thing, which I put on myself. One burden I think was put on me, and I accepted the challenge early on. The other burden I put on myself, because the power of purpose and the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, and hopefully you get the right results. That's less burdensome though, right? I don't need to go hard in the paint. I don't need to scale this thing as fast as humanly possible at all costs. I don't need to do that. So I can take my time with that, because I know that it's a 100-year plan to do this. But it's a lot in when in hindsight, I the first time I thought about it all really was last year, coming together, and yeah, it's a burden.
Do you ever feel like you could rewind to a more simple time? Maybe not be as successful, or maybe not have your mind work the way that it does. I've talked with a lot of very successful people who feel the burden that I think is similar to what you're feeling, and it would be a whole lot easier to be a chimpanzee in the Congo at times than it would be to run this business you're trying to run, and the burden of serving your family and colleagues and neighbors.
I regret nothing, and I would change nothing. I wouldn't change a damn thing. I wouldn't change my
Would not.
experiences growing up. Nope. I would change nothing. Like, I would change no experiences. I would change nothing that's happened. All the static, all the friction, all the challenges, issues. I am so thankful for all of that, because it gave me purpose and direction and clear. Those early calluses as a little kid, up into my teens, and then the experiences through entrepreneurship and the tuition payments that were made. I wouldn't change a damn thing. We lost $6 million last year on Origin. I was running two companies. I wouldn't change that either. I am so thankful that happened, because if it didn't, this year would have been worse. If I didn't stop and pause and put the brakes on and gut the team and recast a long-term strategic vision for the next 10 years, and change the strategy, like, it would have been dangerous. So I'm always thankful for because, like, you're not going to learn it in school, Ryan. Like, this, like, you're not going to learn any of this shit in school. You learn it by doing. And
tuition payments.
Yeah, tuition payments. And so
that's your phrase. I reflect on that phrase just about every day that I put my foot in my mouth or spend way too much money on something I shouldn't spend it on, or do something dumb, which is daily at this point. And I always think about tuition payments.
Yeah, man, you gotta pay that tuition. It's just, you can't let those moments define you. Like, I don't say, like, oh, I did that, I'm a shitty operator, I'm a shitty business owner. I think, like, okay, what have I learned, and where do I go, and what do I do? I'm still going to make decisions. I'm not going to be indecisive. Still going to make decisions. Still going to drive forward. So that's the job. It's life.
Speaking of the job, you fired yourself earlier this year. Is that in part to the $6 million loss? Is that something different? Like, what does that actually look like? Because this is your baby. I mean, literally your baby. This is your brainchild. Yeah. And you're stepping into a new role and allowing other people to step into what you used to do.
Yeah. So running two brands, Origin and Jocko Fuel, at the same time, it was a lot of fun. It fills my ADHD. I can go left brain, right brain, one brand, left brain, right brain, the other brand, and I can jump back and forth, and chaos. I can organize the chaos.
So nice.
So freaking good. Nice. For someone that is neurodivergent, they're calling it now. I don't know if you've heard that term yet, neurodivergent.
I have. The way I look at it is, it's a fidget spinner for adults.
Yes,
so
yes,
call
exactly.
it what you want.
Yeah, so I love chaos. I love organizing chaos. I love creating chaos. And last year, I had to go focus on Jocko Fuel for the first part of the year. And I hired a team to run Origin, and I gave them the checkbook, and I told them what I wanted them to do. And what I failed to do is I failed to have them bring me the strategy and how we're going to get there. And, like, and it was really naive just because I brought a bunch of people on board to think that they knew what to do because they've done it at other brands. And I learned there's no silver bullet, and nobody knows exactly what to do either. Like nobody's going to come in and be a change agent for your company. Like that's a fact, Jack. So about mid-year, we weren't hitting plan. Deliveries were late. We had onboarded a bunch of overflow factories. We had placed blanket POs for the whole year. We were inventories of over 14 million. And this is just Origin. I'm not even talking about Jocko Fuel, right? Well, I was focused on Jocko Fuel stuff. And so I stepped back into the business in July of last year, and I stepped in shit. And the only way I could own that was to look inside and say, you selfish bastard, you're trying to run both these companies and you're giving neither of them the time they need, but it's fulfilling your dopamine levels because you like the chaos. And
yeah.
And so I called my partners and I was like, guys, I think I need to find a new CEO and replace myself. And I told my private equity partners, and they weren't super comfortable with it, right?
I bet they weren't.
They wanted to be running the company. And I don't think my other partners were super comfortable with it either. But you got you've got an enterprise doing $200 million, and it's massive, and there's hundreds of employees, and you got this freaking wackadoo cowboy up in the woods of Maine running these two things. And I'm
Do they have cowboys in Maine? I don't think they have cowboys in Maine.
No, rednecks. And so my partners were super supportive to Deco, Kip, Jocko. Nervous for sure, but supportive because what reason have I given them not to trust my instinct and my? I haven't. I mean, we did lose money last year, but everyone's made a lot of money too, right? So like, hey, like I 100% on me. The only way I see out of this actually is I have to go focus on one thing. And so we put the recruit on, and we found a guy named Chuck Shupin, who is the CEO of La Colombe Coffee Company, and ended up bringing him on board. And I like to say I fired myself. I cut myself loose. I did, right? But I mean, I stepped. I'm on the board of directors. Still founder.
Sure.
Still,
of course,
CEO. I mean, still founder. Still whatever. Like not CEO, but my voice is still behind the scenes in a very powerful way. Yeah. So, and it's in better hands because now he's full-time plus on that thing. Like the dude's full-time plus. Like he's from the beverage industry, and he grew a brand from whatever 30 to 300 million. They sold it for $1 billion, close to $1 billion, just under. So he's got a skill set I don't have. Like I'm a scrappy entrepreneur, like a now, like go, like take no fucking prisoners. Like I want to do things, I want to test things, I want to create chaos, and he's like organized and he's systems and processes, and we're a stage 3 business, Jocko Fuel, and so I had to hand it off to a stage 3 mind because my mind is a stage 1 and 2 mind. I don't have a stage 3 mind. I need that help. I don't have that skill set. And I don't think I will ever have that skill set because God didn't make me that way. He made me as an ADHD kid who needs to cast the vision, and gave me the skills to put the pieces together to create the sculpture, to create the machine of business, and that takes smarter people than I am. So.
It's interesting that you use the word scrappy. You are my third podcast this week that has specifically used that word scrappy.
Scrappy? Really?
Dead serious. I don't know. It resonates with me. It speaks to me. It's like we need, and I was talking to one of my good friends and co-host on the Ask Me Anything, and I said, we need more Nate Diaz's of the world. The guy who will take the fight with a week notice. He'll go in there, he'll get his ass kicked for 1 or 2 rounds, and he'll just keep charging, and then he'll be busted up, bloodied face, beat up body, and then he'll flip you off as he's beating you down for the next 2 to 3 rounds.
Yeah.
That's scrappiness. I like that, man. It resonates with me, and apparently it resonates with the guests I'm having on.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, I think tactically scrappy is very important, not recklessly scrappy. Because everybody gets beat up.
Let's be smart about it, not stupid, right?
Yeah, you might. Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So you talked about being a stage 1, stage 2 guy. You're moving into stage 3 with the businesses. Mm-hmm. As a stage 1/2 guy, what is next for you?
That's a good question. I really found a passion again for purpose within Origin. Last year was the first year I ever worked in my life. It's the hardest year I've had. And you think like, well, Pete, and I say this to myself, like, but you had to remortgage your house, and you would go weeks, like a week without a single order. And your factory you built in the mud, and there's like a foot of mud outside, and you're running off of a generator. Like, wasn't that worse? No, it wasn't. Last year was very hard because I couldn't use my tools to drive behavior and drive success. I couldn't deploy them right. It's like being stuck in mount for a year and you can't get out. Like I just felt like I was mounted.
Bad dream, man.
Yeah, and my neck was getting choked, and I couldn't get out, and so I obviously eventually had to tap, right, and I tapped out, met my capacity, I admitted my faults, I fired myself, and then I got to restart, and it's a new match in jiu-jitsu. It teaches you, like, in your mind you have to restart the match, restart the game. And so that's what I did. I tapped out and I restarted, and gosh, I've had a lot of fun. We had the course correct Origin, cast a new long-term strategic vision, had a lot of relationships that got strained. I was just honest with everybody inside the company and outside the company. We had never lost money. We had always made money for years and years and years, and we bought factories out of pocket. We spent millions of dollars on this, $500,000 making our first pair of boots. We would just take all that profit and we just put it back into the system. And it was always there. And I think I got complacent that we could always just put cash back in, and then boom, you lose, not paper loss, truly lose $6 million. It stung. I would say, did it hurt my ego? I don't think it really hurt my ego. But it was time to self-reflect. And so turning this new long-term strategic vision on for Origin, diving back into the product and the product roadmap and the planning, I'm back in what I love. I love this shit. I love this shit. I'm passionate about this shit. And at the same time, on Jocko Fuel, behind the scenes, kind of working on the same thing with like the brand, the direction of the brand and the packaging and the brand voice. Like, that's been a lot of fun, and not managing necessarily like the executive team or the people. We didn't get into that, but you're a stage 3 business, right? Jocko Fuel is a stage 3 business, and it just takes a different mind than the mind I have. So anyways, flipped it on its head, man.
When you were talking about ego, I was like, man, you've been in jiu-jitsu for 20 years. You have zero ego left.
Yeah, you
Like,
get
you've been
decocked real
strangled
quick.
and choked and everything else. Like, there's no ego left whatsoever. You also talked about restarting.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people overlook is that, and I've had to restart, Pete. We're friends. You've seen me in the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
I have, yes.
When we restart, we're actually better than that because we're restarting with new knowledge we didn't have before.
Exactly.
And
That's
so
key.
you don't start from zero. You start actually 20, 30, 40, 50 yards ahead of everybody else who might actually truly just be starting.
Yeah, nothing replaces experiential knowledge. You can practice things in theory, and you can avoid tuition payments, and there's a lot of good books out there. I'm not a big reader, and I listen to things, but I'm very bullish on oral history and gaining knowledge that way. I think you're a fool if you run your whole life only on experiential knowledge, right? And don't get outside input or influence or advisement. Then you're a fool because that means you're closed-minded. But if you're open-minded and you're listening and you're distilling information and you're getting that experiential knowledge, you will get so much further ahead. And there has to be friction in life to truly realize and self-actualize. And I think we're all in a way trying to self-actualize. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, love and belonging, community, food, shelter, love and belonging, community, et cetera, et cetera. Until you're like, I've kind of like, oh, I've arrived at whatever success looks like, and
Yeah.
success moves. It's a thief in the night. It truly moves on you. So yeah, I don't I don't know. No one has it figured out. The smartest people listen to Jordan Peterson or whoever you're listening to. No, they don't have it figured out. They're dealing with the same shit you're dealing with. I'm telling you
I
right
mean,
now.
we've seen guys
Same
like
shit.
Jordan Peterson go through very public downfalls and struggles and
Exactly.
emotional turmoil. We've seen
Yes.
this.
Yes. Everybody does. Everybody's fighting some type of war. Yeah. But
Well, Pete, man, I got to tell you, I appreciate our friendship. Like I said, you've seen me in some really, really dark times. I'm not in those dark times now. I'm sure in the future I will experience some of those dark times in different ways.
it's inevitable.
But I really appreciate your steadfastness in being not only a resource that I can look to, but also a friend. And I really like this conversation because I've always felt this way. You don't seem like an untouchable. And I say that with a lot of gratitude for what you've given me in my life. I think a lot of these people, like a Jordan Peterson, for example, seem a little bit like an untouchable. You're somebody who I have personally got down in the trenches with, and who I think when other men listen to this podcast, they'll feel that. And I hope it will inspire them to do big and brave and bold and audacious things in their lives. So I appreciate you, man. I really
No,
do.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on. As a good conversation. I shared some things that I haven't or normally wouldn't. So just because we're friends, and I just want to be transparent with you. So
Yeah. You started a new YouTube channel.
yep.
In addition to that, where else can the guys go connect with you? Because I want to direct them in a place where I know they're going to get a lot of valuable, time-tested wisdom.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with a YouTube channel. I started it a month and a half ago. I'd been thinking about it for 3-4 years, ever since I stopped my podcast. And I was like, what can I do? And so I ended up, I've got 30,000 words of a book started, and I haven't finished it. And then finally I'm just like, I just got to do this YouTube channel because I am an ADHD kid and I can just free associate in a stream of consciousness. And so, maybe a month and a half ago, I started this channel, and it's just youtube.com/Pete Roberts. And it's everything I have to give the world, unfiltered, unscripted. Sometimes in the morning, when I'm going to get a coffee, very lucid minded kind of free association. Much like the conversation on this podcast, just real. And so everything from leadership to strategy, business, life, parenting, and the things I'm also thinking about, like that challenge the norm, that really challenge the norm. Things I can't share on Origin, and I can be a little bit more personal about. So that's my YouTube channel. And then originusa.com is where everything comes to life through product. And product is a manifestation of the power of purpose in the brand, and it comes alive through the product. So if you like what we're doing, with Origin, if you appreciate that made in America without compromise, dirt to shirt, field to fabric, fiber to finish, built by freedom, all that shit, I would say go to originusa.com and shop. And we appreciate your support. We have real people making real shit here in the United States, and help this business grow and thrive for the next 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. And I would also, call it Jocko Fuel. Like if you're on I think health and wellness is the opium of the day. Not to quote Karl Marx by any means, but like
easy now.
Well, we could get into that whole communism thing. I actually talk about it on my YouTube channel.
The YouTube channel.
Yeah. I talk about communism and how we funded it, and that's a whole nother conversation. But health and wellness is important, and that's why we built Jocko Fuel to help people realize that and give them a source they can trust. And so that's what I'm doing, and trying to make myself available. Not just hiding out in the woods up here in Maine, but sharing 25 years of learnings. So
awesome. Well, I will say this: if on the Jocko Fuel side, if you're not taking the Jocko Fuel protein or the joint warfare on the Jocko Fuel side, and on the Origin side, if you don't there you go. If you don't have a pair of the Delta jeans or the Mach Toe Origin boots, you're not a man. People hate when I say that. Yeah. I say it just to bother people at this point, but I'm telling you.
Well, technically you're supporting communism, and you're supporting
there you go.
slavery.
I like that better.
If you are wearing anything that says made in China, then you legit are supporting 90 slaves. Like, that is the math.
Whoa, really?
It's bad, yeah.
Just one pair of jeans.
Well,
that's
90. Really, if you're holding an iPhone and wearing sneakers head to toe, you're imported supporting 90 slaves.
I'm laughing, but I don't doubt that that's actually true. Just support America.
It's a data point.
Go get yourself some Delta jeans, get some Mach Toe Origin boots. Use the joint warfare. At 44 years old, Pete, that joint warfare comes in handy more and more. So I'm a believer. I'm a proponent. Pete, love you, brother. Appreciate you joining me today. I appreciate our friendship, and I know this is going to serve a lot of guys. Thanks for joining me.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.